Welcome, baseball fans, to the Highland Bullpen Baseball Podcast, and something a little bit different from the guys today. We were thinking, and we're not often quite this literary, to be honest with you, but George Bernard Shaw once famously said that Britain and America are two countries separated by the same language. So although we might think we speak the same lingo, actually we know we can baffle each other. So we thought this week what we'd do is we'd talk a little bit about the terminology used in baseball, second nature to most of our American listeners, of course. But for many of us, like we were several years ago, newcomers to the sport in the UK, it can all be, frankly, a little bit baffling. So, with the help of Alan and Yorkshire Dave, we're going to look at some commonly used baseball phrases and translate them for all of our listeners on this side of the Atlantic. So, Alan is probably our most experienced baseball watcher here. Will we kick off with one of your phrases that's relevant for you?
Yeah, quite happy to do that. I think I might have sent you guys on a wee list because I was listening to watching the Tigers game the other night, and it stemmed from Yorkshire Dave and myself caught up recently, and we did a wee football ground hop at the wonderful place of Lanark United with a football fan buddy, Rick, and I think it was Rick that said to us, it's like listening to a foreign language, as George Bernard Shaw would have said. So, if we got that list, I'm just going to I did them in order. One of the first things I did was tying. Somebody listens, tying run on base. So tying run on base, yeah. What does that mean? Well, you're obviously losing the game. You could get a chance to tie the game, and the reason you can tie the game is you have a runner who is on base. So all of a sudden, you've got a situation where if your guy's following that batter, can start getting some hits or whatever, you've got the tie and run on base. So an exciting position to be in. You're one behind in a game of football. You've got a chance to score. Tying run on base.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. And that also applies, doesn't it, to you can have the tying run at home plate, for example. So the batter that's on that's facing the pitcher and any base runners together add up to the tying run. And the tying run is also said to be on deck as well. I've heard that said before. Yeah. The tying runs on deck there. So a great introduction, Alan. Thank you so much for that. And moving on to a classic phrase, often heard in relation to the classic pitcher and batter duo, ball and a strike. Yorkshire Dave, ball and a strike.
Yeah, this is sort of fairly basic, but perhaps not as straightforward as it might sound. You know, you could go into a lot of detail about what constitutes a strike, and famously 3 strikes and you're out. Perhaps less known is 4 balls and you get to go to first base. And a ball is something that if the batter leaves the ball alone, doesn't take a strike at the ball, and the ball finishes up outside the strike zone, then a ball is awarded to the batter. And as I say, that's quite important. If he doesn't take a strike, you can already hear me panicking a bit about trying to explain a strike and a ball, which is pretty basic. I think somebody once, for a bit of fun, asked an Englishman to explain the rules of cricket to an American, and they gave up after about 20 minutes. So yeah, I think, do you know what? I think I'm going to stick with that. 3 strikes and you're out, 4 balls and you get to walk. I think what we might do in another episode is we might ask Hamish, and Hamish will give us a definitive textbook answer to both what constitutes a ball and what
Yeah.
constitutes a strike, because the strike zone itself, if you wanted to explain how they come up with the strike zone, it's pretty complicated and pretty impressive. So shall we leave it at that? I'll give you
I think you've covered
I'll
that
give you a
well,
full
Dave.
I'll go on to I'll say a full count because
Yeah.
that comes out of that. So if a batsman is if the commentator says that it's a full count, that will mean that the batter is sitting on 3 balls and 2 strikes. So he's got 3 balls in his favor, 2 strikes. So the next strike is out, but if he gets a 4th ball, he gets to first base. But that's further complicated by the fact that he could foul one off. I'll leave that to someone else to explain what fouling one off is. And it's not what you think.
Yeah,
I'm going to quit now before I dig this a bit further.
I think that's good, Dave, because I think it's full count 3 and 2, and the natural assumption is the next ball something dramatic is going to happen, but the batter will foul the ball off. So when he is on 2 strikes, if his bat gets contact with the ball and the ball goes into foul territory, not in the baseball field, then that counts as nothing effectively, other than he's working hard, he's staying in the game, and he's making it harder and harder for the pitcher because the pitch count is rising. What is the pitch count, Richard?
The pitch count being the number of pitches thrown by the pitcher, and historically that was a higher number than we have these days. These days, 100 often is seen as a pitch count by which a pitcher's going to have lost a little bit of his edge and probably need to be taken out of the game there. So, yeah, that's the pitch count there. But I was just reflecting on the leadoff man, a phrase you'll often hear, and very often, in fact, for the Highland bullpen, that's a role I play generally, leading off on the episodes here. Unlike proper lead-off men in baseball, I'm not known for my speed or base stealing skills. Historically, you want your lead-off man to be somebody with really good on-base percentage, somebody that, whether by drawing walks or by getting bat on ball, can get themselves onto first base or beyond. And generally, it's been speedy guys who you can then look to see if they can steal another base and move things on there. So that's a lead-off man in baseball in a role that I play more often than not, but not always. Just like baseball teams, often they'll rotate that. Somebody will be on form or off form. So I'll leave it to you, the listeners, to judge which one I am. But that's a lead-off man. And we'll move across now and having 2 fellow bullpen members makes this a lot easier. Double play, Alan.
Yeah, so a double play, that could be, you're asking Dave and myself to talk, but a double play, you would think is like a positive attribute for the batter, but actually it's the pitching team, the fielding team who do this. And when they say a double play, you are actually getting 2 men out in the one play. Hence a double play. And that's generally going to happen when the ball goes somewhere close to second base. The fielder throws it to the man on second base, who quickly then throws it to the man on first base. That's the most common form of double play. It can be frustrating if you are the batting team because you're thinking, we've got a guy on base, we've got a chance of scoring, we've still got 2 outs left. And then, hey presto, you lose those 2 outs with 1 pitch of the ball. A frustrating part of the game. And I mentioned there a base hit. So I don't know if Yorkshire Dave, if you want to sort of tell us what a base hit.
Yeah, I was just thinking that almost leads you into a bit of the lead runner as well, doesn't it? Because they quite, not always, but quite often, the double play is quite often referred to as the pitcher's friend, isn't it? There's guys on base and he's only got 1 out, and so they try and get induce the batter into hitting into a double play, hitting a ground ball, which may be picked up by the shortstop or the second baseman, who will get the lead, maybe the lead off the lead runner at second base, and then throw out the guy who's trying to get to first base. So that in that case, the lead runner will be the man who's if you've got a man on second and one on first base, then quite simply,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
man on the second, the lead runner. And the advice generally is, if at all possible, the fielding side, even if it's easier to get the guy out at first, you should try and get the lead runner, because obviously the closer he gets to home, the closer he's going to get to scoring a run. So that's the general idea with that. Now, you did say something about a base hit, if I remember rightly. Now, a base hit. Let me see. I'm gonna try and do something that Hamish might do and give you the definitive answer for this, if I can find it. Yeah, this, because it's quite important. Obviously, a hit which gets you on base might be the layman's term for it, but a base hit is a fair ball hit such that the batter can advance safely to a base without an error by the team in the field. And that's quite important, because if he reaches, even if he hits the ball, but it's deemed by the scorer that the fielder made an error and should have got the guy out, even if he reaches first base, he will not get a base hit for that. So it's quite a tough game. In that respect, you don't get that in cricket. I often think, especially going back to when I first started watching cricket, if the scorers had been given errors to players back in the 1960s and 70s, then there'd be a lot of embarrassed cricketers. But yeah, I think that's it from me. What have we got next? In scoring position.
I think that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah. On you go, Rich.
yeah, no, sorry, cheers, guys. No, I'm just going to very briefly cover off, and great descriptions there, guys. We mentioned the double play earlier on, something you'll see usually multiple times in a baseball game. We probably should have covered off the triple play, which is a far,
Yeah,
far less common occurrence. But as you can imagine, that is getting three outs and from the one play. So very rare. Trying to think what's the most common scenario? Maybe with the bases low, maybe runners on first and second. Presumably, batsman hits maybe straight to third base. I would think would be probably the most,
and he has to run. Yeah,
because first and second both have to run
yeah,
because the batter's having to run. I mean, there'll be different variations on that, but that's probably the one that's.
Yeah.
But yeah, not something you see very often at all.
yeah,
I think you could do a whole program on triple play. Quite often, it's when I think the batter hits the ball straight to the fielder and he's caught out, so he doesn't
Yeah.
have to throw it first. So that's one out. Then there might be a force play at third, so he just has to step on the bag, and then he might have time to throw out the guy who's running from first to second. I think that might be an example of a
right.
triple play. But yeah, there's different versions, and I think that would be worth looking at into some detail,
Over
and
Peter,
maybe
yeah.
coming back with
So,
a
an interesting one coming out of that when you're talking about second and third base is another thing you'll hear on the TV. It's when they say the batter is in scoring position. And you think, well, you can score at any time. But I think they use the phrase in scoring position when they are on second or third base, because the general assumption is a base hit, which is something that might take you to the first base, or a base hit to first base. Somebody on second and certainly on third has got a chance of advancing two bases. So hence they're in scoring position to get home, and hence the score. The reason they have an advantage over the batter to do two bases is they've probably already marched 6-10 feet forward, and they're going to run as soon as the ball is hit. So, yeah, It's yeah. Hopefully, you're still with us, listeners. There's
It could
no-
be, could be worse. We could be explaining the rules of cricket to them, which would probably take, in a language which would probably take longer than a
yeah,
test match, which, by the way, takes 5 whole days. I would be talking about maidens and all sorts and googlies and everything. So
yeah.
probably as well for our listeners that we're sparing them that. But
That would be
one,
a swing and a miss doing that, Richard.
it
Be a
would
swing and a
certainly be
miss.
that. It would certainly be that. And I don't know if a googly would count as a knuckleball or something similar. I'm not sure. One for the cricket player Yorkshire Dave there, but a couple of ones just for me to cover off briefly. A checked swing.
Yeah,
Often you'll see that. That's when a batter, and obviously the baseball is coming at you almost faster than the eye can comprehend. So often you'll see it where a batter begins the swing. So instead of leaving it, he's
yeah,
begun the motion to make contact with the ball, but perhaps somehow, and it's a miracle or superhuman, these guys, recognizing that it's maybe going to be high or low or out the zone, they try and stop themselves effectively, halt that motion. And as long as they do that and have stopped before they break the plane, I think, so before
yes.
the bat goes across that plane, then that's a checked swing. So you often see them, catchers will often appeal to the umpire at first base uh, to say that he swung at that, he didn't check in time,
Yeah,
because they're the guys with the best view of that to make that judgment there. And finally, from my perspective, the cleanup spot. So the cleanup spot, that's not the guy. The cleanup guy isn't the guy in the Highland bullpen who has to follow Hamish about with a shovel. It's actually the guy that bats fourth in the lineup. And the idea there being that's generally a really good power hitter, probably your team's best power hitter. And that in the circumstances where the previous three batters have all reached base, that's the guy who could clean up by driving in those runners with either hits or with home runs,
cleaning up the
potentially
bases. Cleaning up the bases.
cleaning up the bases. So that's where the cleanup spot comes from in baseball.
Dave, I don't know if you had a last one you wanted to throw in, or you're still getting your brain around all the stuff you've been explaining to us so well.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot today. Just on the check swing thing, a couple of things happened quite recently. There's one I think it was in spring training, and the guy I've been talking about, William Abreu, big, strong guy, he checked his swing so violently that he broke the bat. And the guy, they've got to try and stop it from going in front of the plate, haven't they? And it had that much power in it. I think he did say that there must have been some flaw in the bat for that to happen, but the guys on the
Wow.
commentary team were saying they've absolutely never seen that before. And also, I think, yeah, normally, in a check swing situation, the first base umpire makes the decision on that, but he will only do that if he is asked to do so. So they've got to appeal. So the catcher is usually the guy that appealed. And I can't remember who the baseball batter was, but the home plate umpire called him out on a checked swing and actually refused to refer to the first base umpire. So he called him out, and it was definitely a check swing as
Right.
well, and he just went apoplectic. Alex Cora had to step in, which is what managers often do to stop him from getting thrown out of the game, and Alex Cora got thrown out of the game instead. But yeah, the smallest things, strangest things can cause problems in baseball, which are totally unforeseen, especially by us. We're pretty experienced in it, but you think you've seen it all, but
Yeah.
things happen in the game that are pretty rare. Even they've been playing the game for over 100 years, and quite often in a season, they'll be telling you something's happened that's never happened before in the game.
No, it's fantastic.
I could maybe finish with one quick one, which might then just explain something as well. Swing and a miss. So guess what that means, folks? He's swung at the ball and he's missed it. And the reason I'm going to finish that one, it's a very literal saying, a very literal definition. So sometimes you're going to hear things, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Don't overthink it. It's 2 balls, it's 2 strikes. Swing and a miss, swing and a miss. It's really a simple game. 10 years later, like ourselves, you'll just walk around thinking these things are normal. And when somebody's having a conversation with you and one of these phrases drop in completely innocently, you just think they're a baseball fan. So come and join us at the Highland Bullpen. It's been great having you along. Thanks. If you've got any questions you want to ask, just get in touch and ask Hamish, and Hamish will do his best to reply to you at some time. So good to catch up, guys, and we'll see you soon.